back to Monday. So it's Monday the 30th of March. I hope you've had a really good weekend. It's a bit strange, I'm missing all of you, so hopefully you're all doing really well, and I love seeing all of your pictures and seeing your faces when you send pictures of things that you've done. It's really great and it's really lovely to keep in contact with you, so keep on doing that. I really enjoy looking at those. Right, let's have a look at what we're going to be doing today. So today I want you to have a look at that OR phoneme. And we're looking at the OR just about today with that OR. Now the OR tends to come in the middle of words. So we're looking for that OR in the middle of words. So I've put some words up here today. So we've got things like st, ork. So you've got that OR in the middle. St, or, storm. K, ork, cork. So we've got some words with that OR phoneme in the middle. Have a look for those. You can use the words that I have put up here. I don't mind you using those. If you can get on Phonics Play, have a little go at the OR games on there. If not, as I say, make your own games, be creative. I don't mind what you do, as long as you are practicing reading those words. And in year 2, we really need to be thinking about how we use those phonemes to help us carefully with our spelling. So it is a good idea to make your own game because you're having to write those words. Now, our guided reading activity today, in your pack, you have got a picture of some socks. What I'd like you to do, if you think about that last story, Sir Charlie Stinky Socks and the Tale of the Wizard's Whisper, in that story, Sir Charlie gets a new pair of socks. What I'd really like you to do today is to design a pair of socks for Sir Charlie. But when you're designing that, you can put whatever you want on there, but I do want you to think about why this design is special for Sir Charlie. So you might want to design them as one of the characters. Imagine you were the princess and you were designing a pair of socks for Sir Charlie. What sort of things might she put on there? Now, Sir Charlie helped her celebrate her birthday, so maybe she'd put some images of a birthday on there. If you think about the blacksmith's daughter, Sir Charlie helped her become a knight, so maybe she would draw some knight things on there because he helped her do that. So have a think about those characters, what they might put on, but I do want you to write me a couple of sentences about why those socks are special for Sir Charlie. Then today we are going to be thinking about fractions. Now fractions can be a little bit tricky, and what I've done today, I've just put some things up here just to help some of you and your parents think about whether this work is for you or maybe just for a few children, because I don't want you to get too confused. So this one says all because all of you understand these fractions. The next page says most because most of you should understand those. So fractions, when we're thinking about fractions, fractions are part of a whole. You're thinking about a whole thing and a fraction is part of that. So my first image here, I have just got 1. So that is one whole circle, okay? When we have a look down at the next image, I have split it into 2 parts. And when we look at these 2 parts, each of these parts is the fraction 1/2. So each of these is 1/2, okay? The number at the bottom, that denominator, that tells you how many parts to split it into. The number at the top tells you how many of those parts you've got. So when you're thinking about halves, you're splitting something into 2 pieces. Now there's a really special word that we have to remember, which is equal. Well done. You have to remember that word equal. When you are thinking about fractions, all of your parts have to be equal. So a half, you split it into 2. Now when we get down here, my next image, if we look carefully at this circle, we can see that I've split this one into 4 parts. So when I'm writing this fraction, I've got 4 at the bottom because I've split it into 4 and I've shaded in one of them, and this is a quarter. Well done. This is a quarter. Alright? So we've got a whole, a half and a quarter. And then down here, if we have a look, now I've tried my best here, as we know from when we've done this in class, it is quite tricky to split a circle or a shape into 3 equal parts. Try your best, remembering that equal, do the best that you can. So, when we're looking at that circle and we're thinking about thirds, I have shaded one of those in and there are 3 parts. This fraction is called a third. Now, all of you should be able to have a go at doing this. So you should all be able to do these ones here. Now, when you're at home, what you might need to do is I'd like you to have a go at finding fractions of shapes. You might need to find a tin if you've got a tin of something, or something that's got a shape on the bottom of it that you can draw around, and then you can show me these fractions. If you're just doing these ones, you might want to find some different shapes and show me those fractions on different shapes. Do think about the thirds and the quarters, because not all shapes, you can't find all of those shapes. You can't find a quarter of all shapes, so you'll have to think a little bit about that. So, on the next page, we've also got some other fractions. Now, this is for most of you. So, most of you have seen these in class, and you should be able to have a go at doing these today. Okay, so when we're having a look, now we're thinking about putting parts of these fractions together. So when we're looking here, we can see that my circle was split into 4 parts, and I have shaded in 2 of those, and this fraction is called 2 quarters. Now, when you're looking at 2 quarters, you might notice it looks very similar to another fraction. It looks very similar to a half. Okay, and they are actually the same. Okay, 2 quarters is the same as a half. Okay, on my next one this time, so we've looked at that, that is 1 quarter, 2 quarters. I'm going to shade in that last one, that is 3 quarters. Okay, and when we write that, I've just said we've shaded in 3, and my circle was split into 4 parts. So we read that as 3 quarters. Down here, we looked on the other page at 1/3. When I've got 1/3, I can shade in 2 of those, and then my fraction becomes 2 thirds. Okay? Today, I would just like you to look at finding fractions of shapes. So, as I've said, you might need to find objects around your house, like a cup, a tin. I wonder if you can find something that's got a square face that you could draw around, so that you could maybe find those fractions of a square. Have a look, shade it in, and write the fraction next to it. So most of you should be trying to do all of those, okay? So just to give you a little heads up there. Right, in our literacy today, what I'd like you to think about is we're going to be thinking about some verbs. And I've put up here that all of us should be able to have a go at what we're calling regular verbs. So these regular verbs are verbs that we are going to do nothing to. We can add these ed suffixes and we don't make any changes to these verbs. So these are nice regular verbs where we are just going to add these on. We can add them on and we don't need to do anything to the verb. Okay? Now, most of you should be able to have a look at these verbs where we have been learning some of those different rules and some of those different patterns. So, when we look at that verb at the top there, we are going to have to do something when we write that verb. When we want to write begged, we have to double that final consonant. And that happens when we've got that short vowel, that a, e, o, a. When we've got those short vowel sounds, we have to double that final consonant. So if I want to write that word begged, I end up with that double G on the end. Okay? Next verb, care. To care for something. When I add that suffix, that ed suffix on the end, I have to take off the e to, I have to take off the e to add that ed on the end. There aren't two E's together, so I take off the E to add the ED. And then some verbs, so if we look at that verb dry, dry ends with that letter Y. When we're adding that ED on the end, the Y becomes an I. So when we write dried, the Y becomes an I. Now, what I'd like you to do with the verbs today is I would like you just to practice writing. Now, we always practice just writing the suffix because how we've learnt these for our spellings is that the suffix never changes. Well done, yellow class. My suffix never changes. It always stays the same. It's the root word that I have to change. So first of all, practice writing the suffix. Then have a go, and if you're just sticking to those first verbs, those regular verbs, have a go, write the root word. So if we're looking at play, the root word is the play part, and then write that word played out. Okay? So then we looked at that verb where we had to double the final consonant, so we've got that verb to beg, and then if we're writing begged, we've got to double that G. If we think about the verb care, when we add the ED, we drop the E, so we can write cared, and we can write dry, and then we can change that Y for an I to add the ED on the end. I've given you a few examples of some verbs. Obviously, feel free to have a look through. You can look in a reading book, you could find your own verbs. Have a look. What you might want to do, which would be really good, is to write these verbs down at the top of the page, look through a book and see if you can find any more that follow these patterns. So as I've said, most of you should be able to have a look at all of these. Some of you might just be looking at those regular verbs where you've just got to add ED. And I don't want you to do anything more with them today, but just find them and have a look at those different spelling patterns. Then we're going to be starting to think about Easter, because this week in school would be the time that we're starting to do our RE lessons where we were thinking about Easter. Okay? Now what I want you to do, I'm going to put a link on the website which takes you to a video of Palm Sunday. It's one of those little cartoon videos that I know we like watching. I want you to have a watch of that video, and that part of the Easter story was Jesus being welcomed into Jerusalem. What I want you to think about are times when you have felt welcomed. So when you've gone somewhere new, something that's happened that's made you feel welcomed. What did people do? Did people say hello to you? Did they give you a hug? Did they shake hands? Did they smile at you? Think about those things that people have done and how they've welcomed you somewhere new. Okay, so think about how you felt welcomed. And then we've also got our handwriting, and we're going back to having a look at that letter A. So when we do A, it curls round up and down. Then this week we're going to do an A into that P. And remember again, that P is low down and it goes below the line. Then we've got the word map. And remember, we talked about the other day, an M doesn't look like that. It's up, down, around and around, into your A, and then into your P. So watch that again. Up, down, around, into your A, and then down for your P. And then we have got the word nap, which is up, down and around, into your A and into your P, up, down and round, into your A and into your P, and a bit like your M, your N does not look like that. And again, just to finish off today, do some physical activity. If the weather stays nice next week, make sure you get out in the sunshine. Maybe do Joe Wicks in the morning. I know that really helps wake me up in the morning. Find something to do. I know on the website I've also put the YouTube clip, because Chantal, who teaches us dance, has recorded a few dances at home, so you might want to join in with her. Have a happy Monday, and I'll see you tomorrow, Yellow Class. Bye for now.